Montana Territory. Late autumn of 1879, the wind rolled low and mean across the Bitterroot Valley as Orla Langford gripped the reins tighter, her fingers raw from cold and fear. Snow threatened the horizon, and she still had over 5 miles to ride with her children bundled behind her in the wagon. Her husband had left them 3 months ago. He said he was riding into Missoula for supplies. He never came back. Now the horse was limping, and the wagon's back wheel wobbled with a sick groan. Orla's knuckles whitened around the reins. She was 24 with a tear in her dress, a rifle in the back, and 2 hungry mouths, her son Jasper, age 6, and little Josie, barely 3, huddled under quilts in the bed of the wagon. She had not eaten since morning. She had not slept in 2 nights. She had not cried in weeks. She could not afford to. The wagon groaned again, louder this time, and then the wheel cracked off like a snapped bone. The whole rig lurched sideways, pitching them into the frozen dirt along a narrow trail south of Stevensville. Josie started to cry. Jasper pulled her close, shushing her with a cracked whisper like he had watched his mother do. Orla slid down, knees hitting the frozen ground, and stared at the broken wheel like it might fix itself if she looked hard enough. Then her own breath broke out of her. A sob, one, then another. She dropped to her knees, shoulders shaking. "I am not strong enough," she whispered, not knowing if she meant to say it aloud. A shadow stretched across her. "I heard that," a deep voice said. She looked up. He stood beside a tall bay horse, coat dusted with frost. His hat was low, scarf wrapped snug across his jaw, and his eyes, steady, warm, and brown, studied her like she was not broken at all. "I am not here to judge," he said. "Just passing through. Name's Isaiah Thorne." She did not answer. He glanced at the wagon, the children, the snapped wheel. "You do not look like someone who quits." "I cannot do this alone," she said, voice cracking. "Then lean on me," he said simply. Isaiah stepped forward slowly, like he was walking up to a wounded animal. He crouched down, glancing at the wheel, then back to her. "You need a place to get them warm," he said, nodding toward the children. She nodded, too numb to speak. "I have a cabin just a mile west," he said. "You and the little ones can rest there tonight. We will come back for the wagon tomorrow. Snow's coming." She hesitated. "Ma'am," Isaiah said gently, "I give you my word. No harm will come to you or them." Orla looked into his face, searching for deceit. She saw none. She lifted Josie into her arms and took Jasper's hand. Isaiah led his horse with one hand and kept his body between them and the wind. The cabin stood in a thicket of pines, smoke curling from the chimney. It was small but solid. Inside, a fire threw orange light across the walls. Isaiah helped them inside, then knelt and spread out blankets by the hearth. "Let me stoke the fire," he said, already moving. "You sit, rest." She sat. Josie curled into her lap, already dozing. Jasper sat beside her, watching Isaiah with wide eyes. Isaiah peeled off his coat, revealing a shirt mended at the cuffs. He moved easy, like someone used to quiet spaces and long silences. "You live out here alone?" she asked, voice thin. "I do," he said, pouring water into a kettle. "Used to ride for the army, scouts mostly. After the war ended, I came north, built this place with my own hands." He did not say more. She did not ask. When the children were asleep, Orla stood beside the fire, her hands wrapped around a tin cup of tea. "I do not even know what I am doing anymore," she said. "You are keeping those 2 alive," Isaiah said. "That is more than most." She looked at him. "Why are you being kind to us?" Isaiah met her eyes. "Because someone should have been kind to my mother. She never got help. I swore if I ever saw someone in her shoes, I would not turn away." Silence filled the cabin, thick and soft. Orla sat back down. Her body trembled from exhaustion. "I do not know how to accept help anymore." "You do not have to know," Isaiah said, voice low. "Just stay. Rest, one day at a time. She looked into the fire. He sat beside her, not touching, just near, and in the quiet something inside her shifted, not healed, not whole, but no longer alone. That night, she slept by the fire with her children beside her, Isaiah sitting watch just a few feet away, his rifle resting across his knees. And for the first time in months, she did not dream of being left behind. By morning, the wind had shifted. The snow held off, but the sky was the color of pewter. Orla stood at the edge of the tree line behind Isaiah's cabin, her boots sunk deep in the brittle grass, arms crossed against the chill. A woodpecker knocked somewhere high in the pines. Behind her, the children's voices filtered faint and drowsy through the cabin walls. Isaiah's voice came from behind her. "Ground's hardening early this year," she nodded, eyes still on the horizon. "I thought we had more time." "You got what you got," he said. "And you made it here." She didn't answer. The cold had a way of stealing words before they reached her mouth. Isaiah stepped beside her, hands tucked into his coat. He didn't look at her, just squinted out across the slope where the wagon trail dipped into a gully of bare aspens. "Wheel's not fixable. I checked it before sunrise. I figured," she said. "I can help you haul what you need from it. You should stay here until spring." She turned to him sharply. "I can't put you out of your own home." "You're not," he said. "There's room enough. And it's not just about shelter. You need time to plant roots again. That's not weakness, it's sense." Orla looked down at her hands, red from cold and work. "There's no land in my name, no money. Only what's in the wagon and what I can carry." Isaiah let a breath out through his nose. "I've got seed put up, tools, a second mule. If you want to work a patch come thaw, you'll have what you need." She studied him then, really looked at the lines in his face, the quiet in his posture. "Why are you offering this?" Isaiah's brow furrowed. "Because I know what it's like to be forgotten by the world. I'd rather be the kind of man who helps someone stand than one who walks on by." She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, soft as the wind, "I don't know how to trust it." "You don't have to," he said. "You just have to try." When they returned to the wagon, Jasper clutched his small blanket and held close to his mother's side, eyes flicking warily between the trees. Isaiah hoisted the crates down without a word, stacking them in the sled he'd hitched behind his mule. Orla gathered what she could carry in her arms, bedding, dry beans, a pair of boots that had belonged to her husband. They buried the wagon under pine boughs, tucked it back from the trail. Isaiah didn't ask what she planned to do with it come spring. He only said, "It'll keep here." Back at the cabin, Josie sat on the floor near the hearth, wrapping a length of yarn around a stick, humming tunelessly to herself. Isaiah crouched beside her, pulled a small wooden carving from a shelf and handed it over. "Horse," he said. "Found it in Helena years ago." Josie stared at it, then tucked it against her chest and nodded solemnly. That evening, as the sun lowered behind the ridge, Orla stirred rabbit stew over the fire. She had found dried sage in a jar on the shelf and added it with careful fingers. Isaiah sat near the doorway, sharpening a blade with slow, practiced strokes. The scrape of metal on stone was steady grounding. "Where'd you learn to live like this?" she asked, not turning from the pot. "After the war, I didn't want to be seen." "Built a place where no one looked too hard." "I understand that," she said. "There's something about being unseen that feels safe, but it's lonely too." Isaiah set the knife down. "It doesn't have to stay that way." She lifted the pot from the fire, kneeling to ladle stew into tin bowls. "Jasper misses his father. He doesn't say it, but I see it in his shoulders." "I lost my father before I could remember him," Isaiah said. "My mother used to say the ache never leaves, but you learn to carry it better with company." Orla set a bowl beside him. Their hands brushed, not long, not deliberate, just enough to feel the warmth of another person. She didn't pull away, Later, after the children were tucked into quilts, Isaiah stepped outside. Orla followed, drawing her shawl tight. The sky had cleared. Stars hung sharp above the treetops. "I thought it would break me, everything that's happened," she said quietly. He looked at her, eyes shadowed and still. "It didn't," she let out a breath. "No, it didn't, but it changed me." "It ought to," he said. "The hard things make us different, not less." She turned to him. "I said I wasn't strong enough. I remember. And you said to lean on you. I meant it." She nodded slowly. "Then I will." They stood there as the cold settled around them, not speaking, but standing close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Neither moved away. Inside, the fire cracked low. Outside, the stars held steady. And in that quiet place, something new began to root, not rushed, not loud, but sure. By mid-November, the cold had settled deep into the soil, and the days shortened until the dusk came before supper. Orla rose before the sun, moving careful not to wake the children, and stepped outside to haul in water from the creek. The bucket handle bit into her palm, but she bore the weight without complaint. Inside, Isaiah was already lighting the stove, his quiet presence a steady rhythm she no longer braced against. One morning, after the kettle had begun to steam and Josie was still curled beneath the quilt, Orla found Isaiah outside splitting wood. His coat was dusted with sawdust, collar turned up against the wind. She leaned against the half-door and watched him a moment before speaking. "You always work like you're expecting the world to come apart if you stop." Isaiah paused, axe mid-air. "Keeps my mind from places it doesn't need to go." She stepped out, pulling her shawl tighter. "Where does it go if you let it?" He drove the axe down, splitting the log clean. "To a time when I didn't have land under me. When every man I rode with had a rifle in hand and nowhere to return to." She crouched near the stack, picking up the fresh-cut pieces, her fingers brushing the sap. "You ever think about leaving this place, going east?" He shook his head. "I've seen the inside of cities. They don't have room for men like me." Orla placed a log in the basket. "I used to dream about St. Louis when I was a girl, thought I'd wear a clean dress every day and never have dirt under my nails again." Isaiah glanced at her, one brow lifted. "You still want that?" She smiled, faint and real. "No, not anymore." They carried the wood in together, their steps matching without thought. Jasper had taken to following Isaiah around the yard, asking questions he rarely answered aloud but always paused to consider. That morning, the boy pointed to the fence line. "Why don't you keep cows?" Isaiah adjusted the post he was hammering back into place. "They wander more than I have time to chase. Could I help with one if we had it? You'd need to get up before the frost melts. Think you're ready for that?" Jasper nodded solemnly. "I can be." Isaiah gave him a long look, then handed him a length of twine. "Tie that end off. Tight." Orla watched from the porch, her hands wrapped around a mug of broth. She didn't call the boy back, didn't caution him to stay near. Something in her had eased slowly, like thaw creeping through frozen ground. Later, while Josie napped and Jasper sketched shapes in the dirt with a stick, Orla sat at the table mending a tear in her skirt. Isaiah came in, brushing snow from his shoulders. "There's a coyote sniffing near the traps," he said. "Didn't come close." She looked up. "You set steel jaws." "No, snares, less cruel," she nodded, pulling the thread through. "You always this careful, with folks or with animals?" "Both." Isaiah leaned against the doorframe. "Care's not weakness. I learned that late." She pierced the fabric again, fingers working steady. "I keep thinking one of these days I'll wake up and all this will fall through." "It won't," he said. "You can't know that. I can know what I won't let happen." She met his eyes then, the needle stilled in her fingers. "You don't speak just to fill the quiet, do you?" He shook his head. "Never saw the point." That night, As the wind rattled the shutters and the fire dulled to embers, she found herself standing beside him near the stove. The children were asleep. The cabin smelled of pine and smoke. Orla's voice was low. "I don't know when I stopped expecting kindness." Isaiah didn't look away. "Maybe it's not about expecting. Maybe it's about learning to receive it when it comes." She reached out, her hand finding his. The touch was gentle, her fingers cold against his warmth. "I'm learning," she said. He held her hand without squeezing, without pulling her forward, just anchoring her there in the moment. "You don't have to rush it," he said. "I'm not," she whispered. "But I'm not afraid of it anymore." The light flickered low, shadows soft across the floorboards, and they stood there, hand in hand, while the wind passed harmless over the roof above them. By December, snow glazed the ground in soft, stubborn layers, and the creek had frozen into silence. The days came on slow and pale, and the nights creaked with the weight of cold. Inside Isaiah's cabin, the walls held warmth from the stove and the steady rhythm of shared work. Orla had begun stitching a quilt from old shirts, cutting squares by lantern light while Josie balanced buttons in her lap like treasures. Jasper spent his afternoons building traps from twigs and string, proud to show Isaiah which ones held and which ones didn't. One morning, Orla found Isaiah outside, leaning against the fence with his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the ridge beyond the pines. His coat hung open despite the cold, breath curling from his mouth like wood smoke. "You see something?" she asked, stepping down from the porch, pulling her shawl close. "Tracks," he said. "Something big moved through last night, not bear, not cat either." She stepped beside him, following his gaze. "Wolves," he nodded. "Too close for comfort." She took a breath. "Will they come near the cabin?" "Not if they smell us strong enough." She looked back toward the chimney where smoke drifted steady into the gray sky. "Should we keep the fire burning through the night?" "I will," he said. "You sleep." Orla turned to him. "You don't have to wear yourself down watching over us." "I don't mind," he said. Then, after a pause, "It's not a burden, Orla." She lowered her eyes. "I'm still learning how to believe that." "You don't owe me belief," he said. "Only what you choose to give." She was quiet a moment. Then, "You ever think about what made you this way?" Isaiah's jaw shifted. "My uncle raised me after my mother passed. Cherokee, though he never said it plain. He didn't speak much, but he taught me to listen, and to stand quiet when standing loud would only make a man smaller." Orla watched him. "You ever go back, where your people were?" "No," he said. "Places changed. Government pushed most folks out. My uncle died before I could ask what to do with what he gave me." "I think," she said, "you kept it alive." That night, after the children were asleep, Isaiah laid a rifle across his lap by the window and watched the dark. Orla sat beside him, brushing the tangles from Josie's doll with careful fingers. "I spent my girlhood trying to be agreeable," she said. "Didn't know what else would keep me safe." Isaiah didn't glance over. "You still trying?" "No," she said. "Not with you," he exhaled softly. "Good." She turned toward him, voice low. "You've got calm in you I don't understand." "I've had to make peace with things that don't change," he said. "But I've also learned not everything stays broken." Her hands stilled. "I want to believe that." "You don't have to want it," he said. "Just let it be true." The silence stretched easy between them. Outside, the wind shifted through the trees, low and steady. Orla leaned back in her chair, head tilted toward the firelight. "I used to think love came with thunder, big words, grand promises." Isaiah looked at her then. "What do you think now?" She met his eyes. "I think maybe it comes like this." He didn't move, didn't speak, but the stillness between them deepened into something warm and enduring. The next morning, Jasper tugged on his coat before the sun had fully risen. "I want to find more rabbit sign." Isaiah handed him a pair of mittens. "I'll come with you." Orla gave a nod, her eyes lingering on Isaiah a little longer than they used to. When the door closed behind them, she turned to Josie, who sat stacking blocks near the hearth. "Do you like it here?" she asked gently. Josie nodded, not looking up. "It smells like warm." Orla knelt beside her daughter, pressing a kiss to her hair. "It does, doesn't it?" Outside, the snow deepened and the sky stayed low. But inside the cabin, the weight of winter didn't feel quite so heavy anymore. The new year came without ceremony. Snow lay thick on the roof, muffling the world into stillness. Jasper's traps had caught nothing for 3 days, and Josie had taken to singing softly to herself while she sat near the fire, threading dull beads onto string. Orla's fingers were cracked from washing linens in melted snow, but she moved through each day with the ease of someone who no longer feared the next. At dusk, Isaiah returned with a brace of ptarmigans slung over his shoulder, his cheeks wind-burnt, his gait even. Orla looked up when he stepped through the door and nodded once. "They fly low today?" she asked. "Low enough," he said, hanging his coat by the door. "One tried to land in the chimney near enough." Jasper leaned forward from his stool. "Really?" Isaiah nodded. "Gave me a look like I'd stolen its supper." Orla's mouth curved, but she didn't laugh. Lately, she'd smiled more, but never without reason. That night after the children were asleep, Isaiah pulled a folded square of paper from the inside pocket of his coat and handed it to Orla without a word. She unfolded it slowly. A deed, inked in a hand not his. "This is your land," she said, eyes scanning the page. "Why give me half?" "I didn't," he said. "I gave you all of it." She looked up sharply. "Why? I've lived here long enough for it to mean something," Isaiah said. "But you and those little ones have made it into something else. Something whole." Her fingers tightened around the paper. "I never asked for this." "I know," he said, "but you made this place a home. That deserves more than shelter." She held the paper for a long moment before setting it aside. "You trust me with everything you've built." "I trust you," he said simply. The fire crackled. Wind rattled faintly at the window panes. "Isaiah," she said, voice steady, "I don't see you as a man who makes decisions on feelings alone." "I'm not," he said. "But I've watched you rise every morning and shape a life out of what was left to you. That's not something passing. That's something I want standing beside me." Her hands were still. She met his eyes. "I loved someone once because I thought it would make me safe," she said. "Now I know better. I want to love someone because I know who they are." Isaiah took a step closer. "You know me now." "I do," she said. "And more than that, I want you." He reached out then and rested his hand lightly against hers. No pull, no pressure, just presence. "Then stay," he said. "Not for shelter. Not for the children, for us," she nodded. "I will, and not just for the winter." They stood together in the hush of the firelight, the silence between them no longer uncertain but full. By spring, the ground had softened. Isaiah and Jasper cleared a patch near the creek for planting. Orla sowed beans while Josie toddled after a hen Isaiah had bartered for with cured hides. The cabin had grown fuller not in size, but in the way it carried sound. Laughter. Footsteps. The creak of a rocking chair Isaiah had carved from pine. One clear morning, Orla stepped out carrying a small tin pail of milk. Isaiah was mending the porch rail. He looked up and smiled, not wide, not showy, just quiet and certain. "I was thinking," Orla said, setting the pail down. "We ought to build a second room off the back. The children are getting bigger." Isaiah wiped his hands on a cloth. "We'll need more timber." "I'll help you haul it," she said. He nodded. "You always do." She stepped closer and laid her hand on his chest, just above his heart. "I didn't think I'd end up here, Isaiah. But I'm glad I did." He placed his hand over hers. "You didn't end up here. You built it." That night, as the children slept and the stars wheeled quiet above the trees, Orla lay beside him with her head against his shoulder, his hand curled around hers. "I never thought peace would look like this," she whispered. Isaiah kissed her hair. "It always looked like this to me." And in that cabin, beneath those pines, they built their life not rushed, not grand, but day by quiet day, with work and care and love that asked for nothing but presence. They married the following May, under a cottonwood near the creek, with only the children and the trees as witnesses. No rings, just vows spoken with hands clasped and eyes steady. Isaiah made her a wooden pendant carved from the limb of the first tree they'd felled together. She wore it every day. Through the years, Jasper grew tall and broad-shouldered, and Josie learned to laugh with her whole face. The cabin expanded, room by room. The garden fed them through each season. And Orla and Isaiah, bound not by rescue but by choice, built a home that never needed to be spoken of in grand terms. It was enough to live it, every day, side by side. They grew old together, hands weathered, hearts steady. And love, the quiet kind, the kind that held through snow and sun and sorrow, never left them, not once.